What's up, good people? It's your boy, Dr. Leroy McKenzie Jr., and we're back for another episode of the Author Showcase brought to you by the National Black Unity News and JNF Enterprises. Y'all can see that, the National Black Unity News. It is a solution-oriented newspaper, and the Author Showcase is a part of this phenomenal global newspaper that touches the world and brings you knowledge and information and resources that you will not find anywhere else. So we want to welcome you all to the Author Showcase, where we bring you just some of the most phenomenal, intelligent influencers, writers that that are just taking the literary world by storm. And I love bringing you these authors that just blow my mind. But having the ability to be able to have them come and have a conversation with me, I actually consider it a privilege for them to come and talk to me and just give me just a little bit of information about who they are, their mission, their message, their movement, motivation, all of those great things. And today's episode is no different. And this young lady that will be with us today, that we're going to be having a conversation with us, all I'm going to say is y'all get ready. Y'all get ready. Y'all get ready. Y'all get ready. Yes, that is from Bishop T.D. Jakes. Get ready, get ready, get ready. Because the conversation that we are going to have today, I promise you, it's going to give you healing. It's going to give you tips to be able to move from, hopefully, the hurt that you may have encountered, the hope that you may have gone through. But she will give you her story, and hopefully with her telling you a little bit about her story, you'll get the ability to be able to go through and tell your story. So I want to welcome Dr. Monica Y. Jackson. Dr. Jackson, thank you for joining me on the Author Showcase. I appreciate you joining me. I love that banner you got back there too, lady. Yeah, and actually you look like the way you're sitting, that looks like the picture that's on the banner, that could be on the banner. Like your picture, it's like that would fit right there in the banner. So I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
But welcome to the showcase, ma'am. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing today?
Thank you. No, thank you for the opportunity. I am doing fantastic. How about you?
I'm good. I cannot complain at all. It's finally warm over here on the East Coast. I know you were just here and
yes.
everything like that, but we got, I think it's about 60, 70, 75 degrees today. So it's it.
That's nice.
So it's a really nice day outside today too. The sun is shining bright and everything.
Okay.
So it's really good.
It was starting to snow when I left Maryland. I was like, okay, no. Cali girl don't do snow.
Absolutely. We're here today, and we're gonna like we do. We're just gonna have a conversation, and I want people to get to know who you are. We're gonna talk a little bit. We're gonna talk about your book. We're going to talk about various other things that have to do with the book, the kind of springboard from the book. But I always like to start off by having start the conversation off by having the authors tell people just a little bit about who you are. Who is Dr. Monica Y. Jackson, and what you do and everything like that. And then we'll get into our conversation about your book, Wounds of Wisdom, and what that is to everybody. Okay?
Right. Sounds good. Well, as Dr. Leroy said, I'm Dr. Monica Y. Jackson. Put that Y in there and don't leave my Y out of my name. I have a PTSD story why that Y has to be there. So I won't share it now. But I am, when somebody asks you, who are you? You always try to figure out how to answer that. Who are you? And a lot of times we go into our roles. But I'm going to say I am a woman who's authentic. I am a woman of integrity, of character, truth, and I'm a critical thinker. Now, I don't always follow my critical thinking, but that's who I am, and that's who I've always been. I value my name. I hold that supreme above anything because who I am and who I represent and what I represent is paramount. So what you see is what you get. Some of the things I love doing, I am a thriftaholic. I love finding high-end products and getting them at a discount. That's my therapy. And we were during the pandemic, that was only thing that was really open that I could enjoy. It was considered an essential business. Now, as far as what I do, that's who I am. Now, what I do is I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a consultant. My background is in information technology, higher education, journalism, software development. I've been an entrepreneur. I've had a publishing firm, helped many of authors publish their books, been a graphic artist, as well as an independent paralegal. I consider myself a lifetime learner. I believe in learning something every day. My degrees are representative of that. My PhD is in educational leadership. My master's is in business administration. My bachelor's is in computer science. And I have two associates, one's in paralegal studies and one is in liberal arts. So that's who I am and that's what I do.
I love that. I love that. Now, what got you into your emphasis of education? Because you're big on education. What got you stirred or headed in that direction?
Well, you know, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a math teacher. My favorite teacher was my math teacher. Now, I'm not saying I'm the best at math. It's just the way that he engaged us, the way that he was committed to us. He was just a role model. Wow. One of the things he told me, no, don't go into education. I said, why not? He said, go into computer science because you're not going to make any money as a teacher. You want to make money. That's the purpose of going to college. I said, yes, okay. So he said, he gave me that advice and he gave me another advice. Whatever you do not change your major under any circumstances. And I was like, why? He says, I mean, and it was the best advice. And the reason why he said that, he said, your goal is to get in and get out. Get that piece of paper. Because a lot of times you go into college, come out, you don't know what you want to do and what you want to be when you grow up. So your goal is completion. That's your goal. He said, now, if you fail a class, because you're going to fail a class, he said, I said, not me. What do you mean? I'm not going to fail a class. I'm honor roll student. He said, you will fail a class. What you do when you fail that class, repeat that class immediately the next quarter, because you're not going to fail it twice. He said, and if you fail it that time, you repeat it again. And sure enough, I got my first F. Oh my goodness. Wow. And it tore me up. But I did repeat that class and I got a B afterwards. So I did finish. And he said that one of the reasons why he said that, he said, because your friends, they're going to take them forever to complete their degree. You are going to get in and get out. He said, always remember that. So interesting, because I did graduate my undergraduate with computer science. I was in the information technology field for about 10 or 15 years. Then I got my master's degree. And when I got my master's degree, one of the things about me is when I go through things or, life isn't going well, I go and learn something because that's my outlet. So I was going through a rocky marriage at that time. Okay. And I said, well, you know what? Let me do something else and stop, let up on this brother. Let me give him an opportunity to, come correct, to step up. So I went back to school and worked on my master's degree so that I would have another outlet. So after I finished my master's degree, that opened the door for me to go into higher education and teach. And it was interesting because I found myself, that's what I wanted to do initially. My math professor told me not to do that, but if I could find him today, I would tell him, you know what I started doing? I started teaching. And not only that is developing courses. And I'm an
Mm.
independent contractor. I develop training courses and design courses. So I'm still in the training industry. So that's kind of how I got into education. It just happened.
Yeah, and see, I wish these professors and teachers would really be careful of and mindful of the words that they pour into the
Yes.
young students.
Yes.
Because that's just to tell someone, oh, don't change your major. You know how many I changed my major after my freshman year
Mhm.
and wound up having to repeat a class. But here's what I did. I went to summer school. I
Okay.
went to summer class. And let me tell you that it was the best summer I had ever. Because
Okay.
when I went to school, when I went to summer school down there,
Mhm.
and I took chemistry, I had to take chemistry over. It was chemistry, biology, 1 and 2 over again. And it was and the reason I didn't do well, because my initial major was biology. I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
But I think, and I needed a counselor, to be honest with you, because I think I took every hard course that you could take in my
I know.
freshman year. And that's not a good idea. That's
I
not a good idea. And I think like my 8:30 class, and you know about my 8:30 class was like chemistry or biology, something like that. It was like, there's no
Yes.
way in the world you need to be, as a freshman, taking that kind of class.
Correct.
First thing in the morning.
Yeah.
So I wound up, going to summer school down there because I wanted to get the class. I wanted to just, like you said, immediately take the class over.
Yes.
And so the teacher was the first teacher I had was he was a foreign teacher, but it was very hard to understand him and comprehend him. And I
Yeah.
knew it. So
Correct.
got to summer school, like you passed it, no problem. It was easy because I knew the content. It was just a way of being able to comprehend it and stuff like that.
Correct.
But it was one of the best summers I ever had because it was funny because it was just like a regular semester because everybody that I knew was down at school that semester. So it was just like, it was really fun. So, I mean, these professors and teachers have to understand the importance of their words because I know, and I changed my major to hotel restaurant management. Best decision I ever made.
Okay.
But out of that class that was with me, I promise you, I know upwards towards 70-80% of the class changed their major.
Mhm.
Or not even necessarily change their major, but aren't in the major, our majors aren't in our majors now.
Correct.
They've gone on to do something else outside of hospitality or restaurants or hotels. So like you said, you're trying to figure it out, and you may change your major because you
Correct.
say, hey, that's not working for me. That's not what I figured out I want to do. I do believe that college is a place for you to figure that out.
Mhm.
Now you ain't trying to waste nobody's money, but you should, your freshman, sophomore year, you get your feet wet and understand it to see where it was. And the thing that I loved about my major, the hotel restaurant management major, our dean, he was so in tune with us and preparing us for when we got out of school, making sure that we understood the industry that we were going into. And that was one of the reasons why when I had the conversation with him, he gave a really good connection to not only me, but to the industry,
Mhm.
what we could expect, what was going to
Right.
happen if we went through our major and everything like that. And that was vital.
Right.
It was vital to what I've learned. And even being in the industry, I spent 15 years in the hotel industry. And I learned so much, and I even take the tools that I've gotten and apply it to everything that I'm doing today. And that's crucial because that's what we do. I mean, college is there for us to learn different things.
Correct.
And then some of those things we take on with us as we move into our careers. But the real thing comes when, like you said, when we're out of school and we have to learn what it is that we learn
Right.
about those particular industries that we enter into. So
Mhm.
that's awesome. And isn't it ironic that like you said, your teacher told you not to go into teaching, but here you are you're not only teaching, you're developing curriculums So,
Correct.
so you're not just, you're teaching the teacher or the professors how to do what they do.
Correct.
So I love that. I love that it's come full circle for you
Correct.
and everything like that. Now I want to ask you this. Now, what got you into writing? How did you come to get into writing? And then
Well,
even
you know
going
what?
into the curriculum?
I'm going to go back. If anybody goes on my website and you see my bio, you're going to see this little picture on there. And it's a certificate. It's an award. And it's an award from KABC Channel 7, Los Angeles News, 1972, when I was in the second grade. I won an essay entitled, I Am Somebody. And who had to tell me I was somebody? But they obviously loved my essay. They published it and read it on the news.
Okay.
So I just, been in English, and my English courses, they always praise me about my writing. I mean, writing just came natural to me. I just, it just something that I had a knack for.
Okay.
And I started to notice that. I mentioned that I was in publishing. I worked for various different newspapers, magazines. And when I was literally in IT, someone said, "You write very well. And here's a new magazine. You should contact them and ask to write for them." So the young lady I was working with at the time, she was like half my age. And I was like, what's she talking about? So sure enough, I looked up how to query a magazine. I queried Upscale Magazine in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm going to say maybe 2 days later, I get a phone call from the editor, Upscale Magazine, wanting to publish the sample writing that I had submitted. At that time, I was writing about law, business law, family law, just anything, bankruptcy law. They wanted to publish that. Well, I told them they couldn't because I was an editor for this other organization and I had already published the article. So they said, but we want to publish this. It's written so well, so clear. It's exactly what we need. And I said, well, to avoid violating copyright, let me just rewrite the article. No, we want it like this. I said, well, you're going to get me in trouble doing that. So they did allow me to revise it. And so they gave me a contract and I wrote for several issues. I'm like, really? Somebody's going to pay me to write? So I tried it again. I tried it with Black Enterprise in New York. And same thing happened. Sent the query letter, mailed it, snail mail, because I don't think we had email back then. Snail mail. No, we did have email, but the protocol was to mail a query letter. And so again, I get another call and same thing, same process. And so that's how I started writing. And, like I said, writing just became natural. I journal. Okay. That's one way that I release my stress. A lot of times we hear the term or the phrase, let go, let God. Well, that's my way of letting go and letting God. If there's something troubling me or something I can't figure out or just an issue, I'm going to write it down because when it's time to go to bed, Dr. Monica needs to go to sleep. She needs to get her sleep. She's not trying to wrestle with issues of life. She needs to sleep. So that's how I got into writing. I was a newsletter editor for many, many years at from one of my churches. I was the president of the ministry, as a matter of fact. And that's where I learned graphic design and writing. I would edit things. And that's just how I got into writing. It was never, ever an intent to become an author. I was actually teaching people how to, again, developing courses on self-publishing, how to publish. I work with several self-published authors and help them. And eventually, most of my books that I write, they're true to life because of something happened in life. And my one of my other books is Eating Healthy Without Sacrificing Taste. And that came about because friends were passing from cancer. And I've watched the effects of it in questioning the medical industry, their treatments and things like that. And was misdiagnosed with cancer myself, misdiagnosed, mind you, okay, and wrote a book about, eating healthy, how to heal yourself. And so that's really kind of how it happened, not knowing that that was the platform that was going to propel me, to today. When they say all things work together for the good, yeah, they do. We may not see it, but it does eventually.
And I know they say, the old adage is if you want to make God laugh, tell him the plans that you have for your life. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
And that is so true. We have, because I did too. You have this idea of where you want your life to go, what you want to do, but you have no idea that this most of the time it's not going to turn out any way that you think that it's going to turn out. So
the source of many wounds.
Yeah, exactly. Let me ask you this: what is one word to describe your writing style?
Well, since my writing exposes, since my writing educates, it's based on facts and truths, I'm going to say that my writing style is expository. I'll use that word.
What is it again?
Expository.
Okay.
Because it exposes, it educates, it's about facts, and it's truth. And that's what I write about.
I love that. Now, I want you to talk, I want you to tell me what made you want to write Wounds of Wisdom?
What made me want to write Wounds of Wisdom, or what what forced me to write?
What forced you to write
Life forced me to write Wounds of Wisdom.
Okay.
January 29th of 2021, I lost my major contract, my 6-figure contract, for the second time. By that time, I had lost all of my contracts. I'm like, really? Just like many people going through the pandemic. And I'm like, okay, this is really ridiculous. So I'm like, what am I going to do? What do I do? Thankfully, I was in a decent financial situation. Now, it did come unexpectedly. And 2 days later, I just was getting up, washing my face, taking a shower, brushing my teeth, getting a glass of water, sitting at the computer, just typing. Just typing. Mm-hmm. And I did this for 8 to 10 hours for 7 consecutive days.
Wow.
And I just wrote. And it was an outpouring. It was a purging. It was regurgitating the things that I had dealt with in life, from being misinformed, uninformed, deceived, accepted what others said and taught me instead of investigating for myself, not trusting my gut instinct, staying in my lane, so to speak, not rocking the boat. Yet I'm a boat rocker. So I don't understand why I succumb to not speaking up. And so, I rock the boat. That's my character. So how I got into these situations, life's realities, realities of people, realities of institutions, conflicted. What was done versus what was said. And I saw myself writing about these things. I didn't know what it was going to become. I didn't know, I'd never set out for it to be a book. But at the end of 7 days, this book was complete. The book, Wounds of Wisdom, was complete. It's 7 chapters, about 7 wounds. As you can see on the cover, friends wounds, workplace wounds, family wounds, church wounds, marriage wounds, business wounds, and children wounds. And so I saw this and I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing with this? And I looked at it and said, there's no way I can expose all of this information. First of all, I don't need anybody to know that I was that naive. I didn't want anybody to know my secrets. I was just too embarrassed. How does Dr. Monica, this educated woman, this PhD, make these kind of mistakes? How does she think like this? Why is she rocking the boat? Why is her level of discernment heightened? Why does she see things 6 months beforehand and they're happening? And so my losing my contracts was necessary for me to write this book. And my commitment, my message, my movement, and my motivation is to unsilence the silence. And that's what I did in this book. It encourages with realities instead of fairy tales. Life isn't always positive, and too often we pretend we want to speak positive instead of some of the things that are negative. And sometimes if we don't get that negative stuff out, it's going to come out in other areas. Addictions, suicide, mental illness, all sorts of things. So we can't suppress, we have to speak out. And we're not encouraged to speak out. So I want to let readers know that their feelings and their experiences matter. Somebody didn't tell me that. They want you to count it all joy. No, it's not joy. I'm hurting. I don't like this. God's got it. Well, but God's not helping me out right now. I need some help. This hurts. So I need readers to know that they're not alone in their feelings, their pains, their disappointments, and they're valid. Don't let anyone steer you from that. And particularly, I had a conversation with someone on yesterday. Most of the readers of the book are female. However, I'm so glad that many men are picking up this book that are inspired by the book. They're shocked by the book too. I've done different podcasts and, everybody's like, oh my goodness, wow. Oh, they're shocked by it, and it's comical to me, but I thank God that I can laugh about my pains and my wounds that I've gone through. But when men read this book, I want them to understand their value and their impact on women or females. We get into situations because our families are not families. I was talking to a young lady, some of the mistakes that we make as women is because we didn't have male role models in our lives. We didn't have the positive male role models. So we had to invent our models. We had to come up with characteristics of it. Tall, dark, handsome, educated, make this kind of money, live here, have this type of degree, these things. But we didn't have a man to vet him, to look at the things that women don't understand about men. Same with women. We need our men. Men are our missing link. A lot of us are independent women, strong independent women. But what happens is we don't understand, or we lack an understanding of men. And so we come up with our own fairy tale of a man, and then we have that expectation. So it's so important for our men to understand and read these things, because even our youth and young adults, we were talking a few days ago with a young man who was on one of the other shows we were on, the 22-year-old. He says, we need help. We need guidance. We don't have leadership.
Yeah.
And he said, I need to reach out to you. You get it, you understand. And that's part of the problem. Some people don't get it and want to pretend like they have it. And we're missing our generation. So I'm hoping that, one, that people can read the book, identify and heal, take control of and be accountable for your healing. Don't let anyone else heal you. Look for anybody else to heal you, because they're going to heal you their way. Sometimes the best place to heal is by being alone. Once we're healed, we can restore our families. put our men in their rightful place as head, giving them the power and the authority that they have in them, that sometimes women, we have to pull out of them. But too often, we want them to come with it. I'm saying I do. We want them to already come with that. But we, as women, have a different mindset. And that's what I'm hoping that readers get out of this and understand that this book is for men and women, because the feedback that I'm getting is, wow, I can relate. Wow, I said silent. I couldn't say anything. Wow, you had the courage to write that. No, I didn't have the courage to write it. I was being obedient. And I'm so grateful for doing that.
Yeah, and it's so powerful. And before I ask, I want you to talk a little bit about the book itself, those 7 tears that you have. But you said something that I want to hone in on, because the conversation that you had the other night during we were talking about the book again as well, and the young man talked about reading. I was in a meeting last night with one of the organizations that I'm a part of, Black Professional Men. And this organization is 31 years old now, but it was started because of the need to see men, like you were just talking about, so that there doesn't have to be this fairy tale creation of men. That there were men out here, there are men out here that are educated, that are professional, that are doing those things that when we know that women are looking for. And one of the brothers who was actually the vice president of the organization now, he was talking about when he first came into the organization, he said, I needed you all, just like that 22-year-old. And that was him back then. I needed you all. I needed to be around this this figure, these men that I knew that were showing me how to conduct and navigate through this thing called manhood.
Yes.
And having a clear understanding about not just, like you were saying, how to treat a woman, but how to deal with the wounds. Because that's the great thing about this book, because I've read it too. Men will get from this as well, that we need to have an understanding of how to deal with our wounds, how to deal with our hurt. Because we as men have been told since we were little boys, real boys, big boys don't cry. You don't show emotion, because if you show emotion, then you're seen to be soft or you're seen to be weak. It is a sign of weakness and everything. All of the wrong things, or what I call the miseducation that we get of manhood and womanhood. We've been taught so many of these things that are the wrong way, or the wrong things that were instilled in us. And there has to be a breaking down of that, and then a rebuilding up of who we are. And that's what I think healing from your wounds does for you, because you do have to come to a semblance of being broken down, but then allow yourself to be healed, to heal from the wounds that you've had, or that you may have encountered, or that you go through. So I want you, if you can, talk about what the book is about, Wounds of Wisdom. Talk about the different wounds, and what made you break that down, because this story, y'all, I can't even begin to tell you. I mean, this ain't something that she just wrote about. This is something that she went through. Each of these wounds was something that she went through. So if you could just talk about those different types of wounds and the story of Wounds of Wisdom.
Well, I definitely want to start with what you said. You mentioned misinformed or miseducation. I'm being careful. Well, I'm not gonna be careful. Let me say this, and please hear this, what I'm saying. It's not an attack. One of the things that I say in my book, the first thing I say is accountability may feel like an attack when you are unable to acknowledge that your behavior wounded and scarred others. That's how I open the book up. But let me say this, and this is where the source of it is. Religion and church has screwed some of us up. Okay? The approach, the thoughts, beliefs. Are we falling by faith, foolishness, or fallacy? Are we looking at someone else's interpretation and not investigating for ourselves. One of the things, again, not to discredit anyone, but I think for me personally, one of the most difficult things and most damaging things that I feel contributed to my wounds was being raised in the church. I say that because being raised in the church in a naive state, in a state of being vulnerable, in a state of false expectations, meaning the people in the church are trustworthy, they're godly, they're good people. And I'm not saying there aren't any in there, but when you have this illusion that everybody, and this is how you're raised. And for those who have been in the church, we know that that's not true. We want to extend grace and mercy to people, but we don't want to hold anybody accountable in the church. But yet we want to hold accountable and hang everybody outside of the church. We want to deal with things that flat out aren't important. We're dealing with a pandemic right now, okay? People are homeless. People are losing their jobs. What good is an usher ministry? What good is a choir ministry when I don't know where my next meal is coming from? Our focus is so off, but we want to continue doing the business of the church. And we're not taking care of the true business of loving people, of helping people. And the true church is in each one of us. And our most paramount thing is love. Love. We don't know what that is, and we don't know how to demonstrate it. So you have to deal with those wounds. And when I wrote this book, I realized that my decisions that I made in life was because of how I was raised in church, extending grace, seeing things, and knowing that, they didn't settle well with me, but yet I still continue to support it. Why? I didn't want to rock the boat. Why? A child has to stay in his or her place. Why? This is what God expects. No, this is what this church taught. So a lot of our teachings, and I realized this for me personally, and not just me personally, as I went on a book tour, and many other people, when I asked them, I said, what captured you the most about this book? They said church wounds. It's very disheartening that church wounds are so prevalent. And they're continuing to be prevalent. And we're not addressing the wounds of life. Because guess what? If we don't address the wounds of life, you're not going to have a good usher. You're not going to have a good pastor. When this pastor is standing in the pulpit wounded himself, we just talked about some of the things about family. So when you put a male who's been hurt and wounded in a position of power in the pulpit, that's dangerous. And then the pew is following it, him or her, at all costs until that pulpit damages you. That's when it becomes important. So if it doesn't touch your world, it's not important. So that's been the source of the underlining theme for the book. And it wasn't the intent. That was just something I realized afterwards, but it was also what readers connected with the most. And it floored me because I said, now, why didn't I speak up a long time ago, Dr. Monica? Why didn't you say something a long time ago? Because you could have saved yourself from these wounds. So hopefully the book will get people to start speaking up. Because if we don't speak up, what's going to happen? We're going to start fleeing from our institutions. There will not be a church that in the church where it's supposed to be. until we deal with our wounds, friends' wounds. I talk about friends' wounds. I have learned and accepted that friends, we can't call everybody friends. There's some associates, some are there for a season, some are there for a reason. And we haven't understood that. But who tells us that? It's very difficult to have a friend and then you lose a friend over some frivolous, silliness. But we're not taught that and we're devastated. One of the things we deal with death. Death is a part of life. And we get so discombobulated when somebody dies. One of the things that I did my first 2 years in college, I went to Catholic college. And they taught death totally different. I was like, whoa, this is deep. That particular preacher did. Mm-hmm. Now, I wasn't Catholic, but that's why I went to school and I had to take religion. So I look at death a lot different. So when we come in to deal with Christianity, we're talking about, okay, they're in a better place. They're with God. It's supposed to be a homegoing, a celebration. But we grieve in 10 and 15 years. It doesn't make sense to me. So again, where is the balance? Where is the balance in that? And that's what I mean about being screwed up by the church. We have to deal with the reality. Who can teach? Who has the capacity to even teach death and dying in the way that we say? Are we practicing what we preach? Do we believe what we preach? And that's some of the things that I have dealt with. I hope that people read the book, grow, be better, live better because of the wounds. We have to heal. And I believe that wounds are necessary. Without these wounds that I sustain in my family, in my church, in my marriage, from friends, from my child, in my business, in the workplace, this book would not be here. So there is wisdom in every single wound. So when things happen in life, look at what you can get from that. What can you learn from it? Sometimes we can't dwell on the wound because guess what? The wound happened. You can't do anything about it. I choose to focus on the things that I can change. And you have to set your necessary boundaries. It requires you to make some difficult decisions. But guess what? When you make them, that's where your joy comes in. That's where your peace comes in. That's where you discover your purpose. So did I answer the question?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you kind of went into the next one, which was, what do you want the reader to come away with?
Correct.
After they've read Words of Wisdom, what do you want them to?
First of all, I want them to understand, first and foremost, we need to understand life is not a fairy tale. Life happens. You are going to encounter travesties in life. You are going to. But guess what? Who tells you that? Who even teaches you that? We're not taught that. We're taught do this, do that, and live happily ever after. This fairy tale. Nobody's teaching truth. Everybody's teaching, oh, speak positive. Just speak positive. Well, okay, let's just pray about it. Name it and claim it. But what happens when you claim, you name it, but if you can't claim it? Nobody's talking about that. This is what I'm saying about being damaged and wounded. That's what's hurt us because we can't deal with the realities of life. We haven't been taught the realities of life. Even we know that as people of color, since we both hear colors, the playing field is not level. But how many people have raised their children telling them, well, you can become, you can do this, you can do that. Sure, yes, we can. But you also need to understand and let them know some of these obstacles because you go through life and, one of the things we were taught, you go to school, get married, have children, buy a house, live happily ever after. Well, we know about our statistics for divorce rate. What happens when you don't live happily ever after? Who's addressing that? Who's qualified to even talk about that? Nobody wants to deal with the reality. So now you have a broken woman, a broken man, who's never dealt with their wounds, going through life, taking those wounds into the next relationship, don't know what to do to heal, thinking they're healed, and then looking for someone else to heal them.
Wow.
So we need to deal with our wounds. Take time. I hope the book helps people to take time to reflect on themselves. I think that the most powerful message I got from two readers, one was the reader who read the book and told me that she was in the midst of suicide. And after reading this book, she wanted to live. I then knew the power of this book. I knew it. It's not about me, because I never would have written this book. I never would have put this book out there. I never would have said some of the stuff that I said.
Yeah.
But because so many people give me the feedback, again, opening up, speaking, unsilencing the silent, this helps. And so by you unsilencing your hurts and talks about your wounds, that's helping someone else. So if my message and my wounds heal someone, that's the purpose of this book, so that you can go and do the same thing. And maybe we'll have a better world, better society, happier people, loving people, family, that fairy tale.
Yeah, because I tell, you know, my other clients and authors, I said, who are you to keep the message that's intended for someone else from them by not writing and putting that book out there? Because you don't know who that book is meant for. And like you said, that one, even if your book didn't touch anybody else, that one person, that one woman that said you saved her life, that in and of itself is worth those, you know, like you said, what you went through was specifically for her. Wasn't even for you, but even though it may not seem like the wounds that you got weren't for you, it was for her. Because if you didn't have those wounds, you don't write that book. You don't write that book, she takes her life.
Correct.
And I'm just like, that's very powerful. When I ask you this, what does the title "Wounds of Wisdom" mean to you?
Woo. Title "Wounds of Wisdom" means that there's purpose that we don't understand. There's, you know, a lot of times people say God allows things. I don't believe God allowed any of these wounds to happen in my life. I believe my choices, other people's choices, other people's influence, and people of the world contributed to these wounds. I believe God took these wounds and used them for good. So that's very key, because it's very difficult to, you know, one of the things we say, win souls to Christ, when we say that God is in control and he's allowing things. Well, who understands, why did he allow the pandemic? Why did he allow somebody's child to die before their time? So that our timeline that we think. I heard a pastor say something about control. God is not in control. God is in charge. We are in control because we choose, we make the choices that we make. And I was like, wow. So in other words, we need to stop blaming God for a lot of things. And again, like I said, the screw up that I got from church, because otherwise, who wants to serve someone that's going to damage them, to hurt them, to harm them, when we're saying God is a loving God? It conflicts for me. And so how do you rectify that? So when I look at wounds of wisdom, wounds are necessary for you to learn, for you to grow. If everything in life was perfect, trust me, we'll be some stuck up people, we'll be some rude people, we'll be some don't caring people. I mean, and we have some of those kind of people, but we'll have it to the nth power. It'll be about me. And a lot of times we wouldn't be populating the world because everything's about me and revolving around me. Some of us wouldn't even exist. So the wounds of wisdom means that you've gone through something, you've been through something, you've learned from something, and you're sharing that with someone else to empower them, encourage them that they can make it too.
I love that. Why is it important for us as people to deal with our wounds?
As I mentioned earlier, if we don't deal with our wounds would deal with us.
Mhm. Mhm.
Definitely. Again, suicide, mental illness. People are hurting. And this is why, because they couldn't talk to anybody. I can't tell you how many people call me and say, talking. Someone say, you listen, you hear me. I know that because someone didn't listen to me. I know that the only way that I could get through my wounds was to talk. If somebody on the street asked me, hello, how you doing? I would tell them my story because I was just that wounded. I was hurt. I didn't care about what they thought about me. I'm never gonna see them, never see them again. It was easier to talk to a stranger than it was to talk to a friend or a family member because they weren't there for me.
Mhm.
They didn't want to hear it. They were too caught up in their religiosity. Oh, just pray about it. God is in control, but I'm hurting. Okay, now if I go and blow my brains out, oh, I should have listened. And this is what people don't understand. People reach out to talk and nobody wants to listen. We're not necessarily looking for solutions, but to be able to release that.
Right.
And so it's important, you have to release it. Also, it's also for you to be whole, to be able to walk and live in your purpose. I don't think you can walk and live in purpose in a wounded state. You're going to damage somebody else.
Right.
So until you deal with your own wounds and until you get to the source of that and root it out, it may not be solved, but you have to be comfortable with where you are in that wound. And also, sometimes wounds help us to realize our purpose, which is to encourage us to fulfill that purpose. Because without that wound, trust me, we're gonna do exactly what we want to do. I guarantee you, had I not going through this wounds, I'm not gonna sit and listen to this lady talk about she wanted to commit suicide. I'm too busy going to do Dr. Monica. I'm not, that's reality. So until your world is shaken up, until your world is turned upside down, that's the importance of dealing with these wounds of life.
Yeah. I told y'all the day was gonna be, it was going to be I won't say a therapy session, but a session on dealing with that wound. So what's next for you, Dr. Monica? Why? And I want you to give your contact information, how people can connect with you, how they can buy purchase the book, and then if they want you to come out speak or connect with you for that reason, if you can give that information as well.
What's next for Dr. Monica? Okay, this is Dr. Monica talking. I don't know what God's plans are, but this is Dr. Monica's plans because, hey, he had me write this book, so whatever he has me doing is what I'm going to do. But personally, I believe my message, my mission, and my movement is to unsilence the silence by empowering men and women to reach out. And I want to reach out to youth and young adults. I want this book to also become part of required curriculum. Some of the things we deal with, we need to deal with real life situations, especially for junior high schoolers transitioning to high school. I think that's very critical. High schoolers going into college, coming out of college life, so they don't go into life with some of these ideologies that we grew up with. And dealing with reality. How do we navigate through this? How do we teach them to think critically? How do we let them know how to solve problems? I mentioned earlier that one of the classes I taught for 10 years is critical thinking and problem solving. People do not know how to think. They want to be told what to do.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
And I'm talking about in business, I don't like social media. I want somebody else to do it. I just want somebody to tell me to do it. But no, sometimes you got to sit there and learn how to do it yourself. Okay. I don't want to do these podcasts. I just want people to go buy the book. And the book does what it's supposed to do, helps people. But I can't do that. I want somebody else to do all of that. But I realize I have to do that because I am the brand my message, nobody can tell my story like I can tell it. And I didn't want my face out there. Again, here I am. I think that has still to do with this embarrassment type of thing. So I want this to get into the bookstores, to get in, no, well, not necessarily bookstores, but into hands that are going to read it and it's going to change their life and propel them through life. Just like that young man, that the 22-year-old young man, sometimes we don't have the role models around.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to hear other people's story. So if we can show real life stories that can help someone through their education, then that's what I hope for, I aim for. That's what's next for me. That's what I believe is next for me. Now, what God says, hey, we'll see. People can reach me, as you can see on my screen behind me. You can purchase the book at drmonicajackson.com. I'm on Facebook. You see the Facebook here, the Instagram and Twitter, and Dr. Leroy has me out here posting like crazy. Everybody, you guys know, the book has been out just a year. I really didn't market the book because I was like, okay, I don't know what the purpose of this book. I had to make sure I was not being negative or, bitter or revengeful or anything like that. But Dr. Leroy has helped me come out of my comfort zone to do things like this, to go out and speak. So I'm a lot more comfortable now because I understand the power of the message and using the tools and using the resources and the people that have been surrounding and embracing me. So you can reach me on my website. There's a contact page and you can reach out to me. I do respond for speaking engagements, to purchase the book, or even some of my other services. Let me clarify my degree. My degree is a doctorate of philosophy, not psychology. I'm not a mind doctor, so I don't sit there and listen to people's stories and solve their solutions. However, because I remember someone introduced me as a doctor of psychology. I'm not a psychologist at all. My degree is in philosophy. So feel free to pick up the book and, hopefully you'll begin to demonstrate some of the things that you want to be. And when I say demonstrate, things that are practical, explanation, clearly show truth and proof, as opposed to practicing, which is habitual or customary, expectation, repetition, duplicating and following. Big difference. So that's what I hope the book does. So reach out to me. I thank you, Dr. Leroy, for this time, this opportunity to just share on your platform, as well as the Black News, National Black News, Unity News. And that's a powerful message, unity. And that's hopefully what the book does. Unify you as an individual so we can unify our people, our communities, our homes, our families, and our world. Thank you.
You can't heal a family, you can't heal a community if you don't first heal yourself. And that's what it starts about. The Wounds of Wisdom, y'all need to go pick this book up. She has her and we didn't get a chance to go into them, but the wisdom rules. What do you call those?
Oh, at the end of each chapter, yeah. That's what you're talking about. Yeah. Everybody it's so funny about that. At the end of each chapter, I have words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom. That's what
words of wisdom at the end of every single chapter. And that initially was not in the book. Okay. When I gave the book to someone to review, they said, my goodness, there's words of wisdom in there. And again, I believe God had me go back to the computer and just put those words of wisdom, at the end of each chapter. And that was literally before it went to the public, to print. So, it's just amazing. I read this. I read my own book, and I'm like, oh wait, you didn't put that up.
I know, right?
You just said it like that. Okay, did we lose contact? One of the words of wisdom I do want to share is words of wisdom number 27. I just randomly pulled one out because Dr. Leroy mentioned it. It says, before you can hold a pastor accountable, you must be accountable yourself.
Absolutely.
So that's at the end of, I think, the church rules chapter.
Absolutely. And I love that. And I love that because we can't heal, we first got to heal ourselves. It starts within here. Everybody, I promise you, when you read this book, you won't be the same after you read this book than you were before you read the book. As y'all know, I always say that my goal, my assignment is to make you better after every encounter that you have with anything that JNF and myself that we are part of, to make you better after the encounter than you were before the encounter. And that even has to do with us in this year that we're in. We want to make you better by the end of 2022 than you were at the beginning of 2022. And the way that I do that, the way that I strive to do that is by bringing you great, phenomenal people like Dr. Monica Y. Jackson, who gives you the tools that are necessary for you to be able to be better and move forward in your life. So thank you, Dr. Monica. Thank you so much for coming and having this conversation. Y'all know how we do. It's the National Black Unity News. You can get the current issue, which Dr. Monica is in. You can go to www.tnbun.com. Be sure that you subscribe to the newspaper. It can be delivered directly to your door. You can go online and actually look at the latest issue of the newspaper as well. It's there too. But we want you to subscribe. We want you to subscribe to this newspaper because it is a newspaper packed with information, knowledge, and resources that you can use and that you're not going to see anywhere else. And that includes the author showcase with phenomenal authors such as Dr. Monica Y. Jackson. And we have some other authors that are going to be coming up in the next week. I can't wait to have them come on as well. They have just as much power, influence as Dr. Monica. Their stories are just going to blow you away as well. But I want to thank y'all for joining us for this episode of the Author Showcase, brought to you by the National Black Unity News and JNF Enterprises. As I say, it's 2022, y'all. It's building season. It's building season. What are you building in 2022? Even if it's building you, how are you building you on the inside to make yourself better by the end of the year than you were at the beginning of this year? So my name is Dr. Leroy McKenzie Jr., the Impact Builder, and we'll see you all next time. Have a great evening.
Bye.